Hi, I'm Meta Spencer. Today, let's go to Romania. I've never in my whole life been to Romania, but I see somebody there that I have met in the past and I want to talk to. And this is particularly the right time to talk to somebody in Romania because this lady, Anda Serban, lives near the border where she's aware of the large number of Ukrainian refugees coming into her country. And so we want to have, in large part, a conversation about that. Anna Serban is an activist, a peace activist that I met, and she and I both think it may have been 2014 in maybe Geneva. We had lunch together. And apart from that, I think we haven't had much contact. Good morning or good afternoon, it is actually, Anna Serban. How are you?
Hello, Meta. Yes, it's good afternoon, good evening, even here
Yeah.
in Romania.
I think everybody's so keen to hear about the situation of the refugees in Ukraine that, if you don't mind, let's start off with that and then sort of work backward. This is the reverse order from what we usually do, and talk about your own activism at the end, toward the end.
Sure.
Because I think most people are immediately concerned with finding out how things are going. Tell me, you are located in Costanza, which I have not been familiar with at all. I didn't even know the city existed. And you can please tell me what you're doing a little bit and then bring us as much into consciousness about the arrivals of these desperate people from Ukraine.
Uh, as you said, yes, I'm living in Constanza. Is around 150 kilometers from Isacha border. The border of Isacha is directly with Ukraine, and it connects the Odessa part and the south part of Ukraine to Romania. Actually, it is interesting for us in Romania because we are connected both on the south part of our countries, but also in the north. So people would either the ones that would come from the Kiev part would go to Siret border in the north of Romania, and the ones that were located in the south and southwest of Ukraine would enter Romania or Republic of Moldova through those other borders. And I remember when everything started. I have a background in international relations. I've done a master in security studies, and in my group of friends, close relatives, people were asking me, "Do you think the war will start? Do you think the war will start, and how it would look like?" Um, but I do remember in the first days uh, how we didn't know how to respond. We knew the Ukraine was bombed and people were coming into Romania, and during one night we were just talking with some friends that we need to go. In the next morning, we need to take our cars and go to the border and see what it is needed, and that is what we've done in the second day of the starting of the war. We just went where we bought some essential things and um, blankets, hygienic products, and so on. And we went there to see with our own eyes what are the needs and what we can do, how we can arrange, because it was chaotic in the first days of the war. People were fleeing. They were coming into Romania. Authorities were not very much prepared for it, even if on the news, all the news in Romania for more than 2 weeks before the invasion started, we're talking only about that.
You said
But
you were being asked whether you believed that the war would come. What
mhm,
did you think? How almost everybody that I know who should have were in a position to be aware at all, thought that it wasn't going to really happen. Did you think it would happen?
Uh, yes, because it happened in 2014 with Donbass. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really thought that it will be so close to us, maybe. We didn't took into consideration people fleeing Ukraine, considering how big is Ukraine as a country. We were used with what happened in Donbass and in the east part of Ukraine in 2014 in Crimea, and we thought that there will be some refugees, but inside their country. We didn't know that.
Right. Okay. Now, was it true that the people who were arriving first were mostly from this the eastern part, either the Donbass or those people had already left? I guess the people who had wanted to flee from the Donbass would have been out of there years ago. But were these new refugees coming from the eastern part of the country, or were even some people around Lviv coming into leaving the country then right away?
Um, right away, I think in the north part of Romania, so for Siret, people from Kiev and Lviv just split it between Poland and Romania. As I read, I understood that the ones that had more connection with the Western Europe decided to go through Poland. And the numbers, at least in the first month of the invasion, a lot, way more went through Poland or went to Poland than through Romania. But the ones from the south part, from Odessa, from Ukraine, didn't had any other chances than coming through Isacha, so through next to my city, or through Republic of Moldova.
Now, were these people coming? We get the impression that everybody's going out by train and that the trains are still running, although I believe one of the trains was, or one of the tracks was bombed or something. Are most people arriving by car or by train or by donkey?
By donkey, I think, most of them. They're coming by bus or something until their border, and most of them were passing the border by foot. So there
Okay.
were a lot of them, especially in the first days. We could see the ones that had the means to just be able to leave in a few hours, that have the cars, a tank full of gasoline, and so on. But when all those passed, you could see most of the people coming by foot. And there were also a lot of.
Wait, how did they get to the border? They can't have walked too far. You mean literally they walked dozens or hundreds of miles to get there?
Dozens of miles. I know there were in the volunteers group on Facebook a lot of resources of people that would bring them from city to city. And this how a person, for example, from east part of Ukraine could done the entire road in a few days, because they will have multiple stops depending on what rides they could find. And then on the last kilometers or dozens of kilometers will come by foot. At some point, I think in the second week of the invasion, the cars were blocked at the borders because there were too many, and the line would be of 20, 30 kilometers of car waiting, and it was easier to pass by foot. So people would just leave their car there and just trying to flee their country by foot.
I want to find where you are in Constanza. Oh, you're right on the Black Sea, aren't you?
Yes. What you see in the map is Ismail, and the city from Romania that is closer to that border is Tulcea. Yeah, there.
Tulcea. Tulcea.
Yes.
Okay. And so that's where a lot of the people will be coming, or is that just one of many places where these people arrive in Romania?
Um, that not a lot of them stayed in Tulcea. A lot of them are in Moldova, or the ones that came through from Ismail or Odessa, this part of Romania, stayed in Constanța, and because they prefer larger cities
Mhm.
to accommodate. Authorities are more organized,
Uh-huh.
and they can receive more organized help.
Okay, now here I see this image of Moldova. Let's talk about that a moment, because one of the things that we are being threatened with, or the world is being threatened with, is the notion that if the Russians can get a good foothold in the Black Sea, they will try to enter Transnistria and maybe Moldova itself, and really have control of the seacoast. Now, Transnistria, there's a line here on the southern part of Moldova. Is that Transnistria?
Transnistria is, if Adam could zoom in a little bit. Okay, and a little bit. It's not. No, it's not this one. It's a little bit from Tiraspol.
Tiraspol, okay. Around there, yes, that's what I thought. Okay. What is that line down where the southern, there seems to be a line, a border of some kind down in marking the southern part of Moldova. What is that? You see what I mean? The black line.
The black line would be the border with Ukraine. So it's just
that's Ukraine. I'm sorry. So that's Ukraine all the way around there.
Yes.
So I didn't realize Ukraine reached that far west.
Yes, it reaches and it's neighbor with Romania. Here in where is Delta, where is Tulcea, is actually the Danube Delta, and it has a very important geopolitical. It has a geopolitical importance because the entire Danube River that comes through most of Europe joins with the Black Sea. So that is why.
Sorry, that line is not a border, it's the Danube River. Is that right?
Yes, it's the Danube River.
Oh, I didn't even know where that wound up. I've been down the Danube a little bit, but way up closer to Vienna or someplace. Okay. All right. So now I have an image. So this Ismail is just inside Ukraine, right?
Yes.
And across from it is Tulcea. Tulcea?
Tulcea, yeah.
Pretty close.
Ismail and Tulcea is in Romania. And if you look in the left of Tulcea, it's Isacea, the small city.
Maybe we need to enlarge it a little bit to see.
Yeah, that's it.
Isacea.
That's where the border is, because from Ukraine to Romania you cannot cross otherwise than with a ferry. So this is the border with the ferry.
Isacea. All right. Now I've never seen this, so it's very interesting. But now clearly it's not easy for people to just wade across the Danube. They have to go to a real checkpoint, right? A real official crossing. Do people ever do things like get in a rowboat and try to just cross the Danube or something, on their own? where there's no official entry point?
No, we didn't had too many situation like this, but that's also because they didn't have any issue crossing the border. So once also there were some issues with corruption, but that were also on the Ukrainian part of the borders. But once they reach European Union borders, they would let in also without any papers if they didn't manage to take them. And people from the refugee centers and immigration centers will be 24 hours at any border, and they would register them. So they didn't have any issue and any reasons to cross the border illegally.
Okay, now that's another question I wondered. How was that decision made? Was it a decision by the EU to allow anybody from Ukraine in, or was it a decision? Is it considered up to each individual country? Well, I know that more people have been going to Poland than anything else, and I don't know whether that's in response to a position that Poland has taken, a more or not. Whether is there any variation in how welcoming the other countries are to it's just Poland, Hungary, and Romania. Are those the only three countries adjacent to Ukraine, right?
Yes.
Is there much variation in how welcoming or open they are to immigrants or refugees?
Between us and Poland, I don't think there were any variations. We both countries were welcoming, and we didn't had any politician that or public figures that will speak against the refugees. So everyone was on board, everyone was welcoming, and a lot of just normal citizens were opening their houses for them. I myself thought what made the difference in the numbers, and I think the difference was made by the Ukrainian infrastructure, because the Ukrainian infrastructure in the northwest part is better. So from Kiev to have a connection with Poland is way easier to go by car than in the south part or the part connecting with Romania. It's not so developed as
What
at
about
infrastructure
trains?
level.
Do they have
Uh,
to your border?
Yes, they had from Chernowitz trains to our border, but again, the infrastructure is not so developed. I'm not proud of the railway system in Romania, so I think this is um, one of the reasons that they went more to Poland, or because they had relatives already
Well,
working in.
another thing that occurs to me is the language difference. I
Mhm.
assume, I don't know whether it matters to people much, but and maybe I've found that a lot of Ukrainians actually learn English. I think a significant number of people speak English, but Polish is really a Slavic language, and Romanian is not, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
does that make much difference to people?
Yes, it does, and we really needed the help of translators, translators, volunteers at every refugee center or center that offered any kind of help, because the language barrier was indeed, and it still is, one of the main issue in this crisis. For example, the ones that went to Republic of Moldova, because there were a lot of them going also there, but they saw that the country couldn't support them financially, such as Romania or Poland. So most of them tried to come in one of those countries. But in the Republic of Moldova, most of people speak Russian too. So the language barrier wasn't an issue there.
But Hungary would be even more of a problem. I think anybody in the world would be stumped by Hungarian, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
And also Hungary had it was a little bit different. I know a lot of organization and civil society mobilized in Hungary to offer support to the border in the first days, but unfortunately their government didn't had the best statesmen from time to time and in what is needed. At some point, it was an issue with refugees that wanted to go to the west part of European Union and had to go through Hungary because they will check their papers way more than we would check them in Romania or Poland or any other European Union country. So you could still see that the Orban government is far from the European values, and that had an impact on the refugees'
And
well-being.
Orban has just been reelected in a way.
Yes.
He doesn't need to apologize because he has a clear mandate.
Yes.
It's hard to believe. I don't understand it at all. Maybe you folks do. Do people talk about what's going wrong with Hungary in Romania, or do you just shrug your shoulders and say, ah?
We do speak, and also depends a lot on our social bubbles. In my social bubble, I have a lot of friends and colleagues from Hungary, friends that are blamed by the Orban administration, that are Soros, or only because they are part of civil society and because they receive funds from United States or Canada or so on. They are on the blacklist of Orban, and they not even them they understand exactly what is happening. And now with those elections, I know that they really tried and fought and mobilized people to go and vote against. They tried to have an alliance against Orban, so the parties allied against him, but still they didn't won. And I think how he played his cards with the refugees now, he showed them that still Hungary is more important than European Union, and so people went out and voted for him. The nationalist extremists didn't stay home on that Sunday, and they went out and voted.
Well, I wonder to what extent it's you can explain these things the same way you would explain the Russian adherence to Putin. That is that they have control over the mass media. That the only things that people watch on television are state-controlled or state-dictated ideology. Is that as much the case in Hungary as it is in Russia? Because now Putin has almost absolute control over the mass media, and he's clamping down badly on internet social platforms, I think.
I think there's a small difference on the censorship. I think in Russia, and Putin is using way more censorship methods. But the narrative in Hungary is very, very strong, and they name them as enemies of Hungary, and they have entire PR campaigns against the enemies of Hungary, those civil society or free journalists or anyone that has more progressive values. It's
Mhm.
an enemy of the state
Mhm.
for them.
We in Canada became aware of that most a few years ago when they shut down the Central European University. You know, it was headed by Michael Ignatieff at the time, who is a very important person in Canada. You know, his father and mother were friends of mine and very distinguished former ambassadors and so on. His father was. So when Michael, who tried to become the Prime Minister of Canada and was defeated, became the head of the Central European University in Budapest. We were following that event, you know, that institution, and dismayed that eventually they just had to leave the country, either because of direct pressure from Orban or because they got disgusted and from trying. I'm not quite sure which.
Mhm.
We became aware of that as Orban's you know, monkeying around with freedom of education, freedom of speech, and so on. So it's very distressing and amazing that it's continuing apparently even now. Anyway, um, what happens to these people? Do most of them, once they arrive in Romania, try to find an apartment or get some funds to set up, you know, their own households, or do they live with families, or do they try to move on to another country?
I don't have the numbers, the recent numbers, but we have three situations. Either they are staying in centers that are organized by any type of authorities, the social fair directions, or they are staying in schools, in dormitories of high schools, and so on, or they're either staying in with organizations that have larger places and also dormitories or pensions, or and can offer accommodation. But a lot of them went with families that offer and open their houses for free for them.
Mm.
There are thousands and thousands and tens of thousands, I think, of people that are living all around Romania, and there were, I think, for the first month, people will keep on going at the border and just waiting to see if a family comes or if refugees come that needs accommodation. I would just take them in their cars, register in, I think from the second week we started the national registration system for everybody to register in order to have control what where the refugees are going to, as a form of protection for them, and everything. And since to 24th of March, we also have a law that normal citizen can declare their refugees guests, and they will receive an amount of money for food and for accommodation, um, accordingly to the number of refugees they are having in their homes. And but normally those money goes to refugees also, in order to have money for food and everything.
Mhm.
Um, Unfortunately, we saw a rise on prices for rent. So there were still a lot of people that didn't do the right thing, and but um, there weren't so many requests for rent apartments, and especially because I think this will change now, because people didn't know what to expect for how long to stay in Romania,
Still don't
and
really, do they?
still don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it is okay to from their part, and I see comments in the Facebook groups where they post their issues, and they talk. um, they feel welcome and still feel welcome in the household of Romanians, but more than a month passes, and they don't want to be a burden on those families. And now they are starting to look for work in order to be able to pay a rent and rent an apartment until the end of the war.
Hmm. Okay. Can they be in close touch with people back in their home cities, their families, and so on? Are the phones working? Is the email working? Is there any restriction on what they should say? Any kind of censorship for reasons of security?
No, I haven't heard of any kind of censorship. I know that at some point there were some issues with internet in Ukraine. I don't know if Starlink of Elon Musk solved that issue, but I know that at some point he brought some satellites that would improve the internet in Ukraine.
Oh,
But
tell me, I didn't hear about that. Elon Musk got some satellites to help boost
Yes,
the receptivity of the internet.
yes.
Well, good for him. I don't know what to think of that man. I have very mixed feelings, you know.
Me too. But
Okay,
he did good in this instance.
that's good.
The refugees would receive not a telephone but a SIM card, a Romanian SIM card with a Romanian number once they are entered Romania. So at any border, there were free SIM cards. They stayed in touch. I think they stayed in touch, and I saw them talking and being worried if 2 or 3 days would pass and didn't hear anything from their relatives in Ukraine. So I guess
They can at
that's
some, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. What about the assistance of other countries? I mean, you make it sound as if it's really you just these three countries that are bearing the main burden of hosting these people, and I wonder if any of the other EU countries or any other countries in the world are doing anything to help that out, because it's always such a burden on the countries that receive huge numbers of refugees. And I mean, Canada has said, well, we'll take 100,000 or something. And I think they mean well, but I don't know. I haven't heard of a single one arriving. Doesn't mean they haven't arrived. It means I don't know about them. And I don't know how quickly they're actually helping people move and settle here. There is a large Ukrainian population in Canada, you know, that came a century or more ago, and mostly, largely out in Manitoba and that area. But I don't think that Canada has donated any humanitarian aid to Romania to defray some of the expenses, as far as I know. Although there's a lot of talk about sending military aid to Ukraine. I think the focus is almost entirely on that. Do you know whether any other country is pitching in to help Romania, Hungary, and Poland?
I know that the funds that Romanian citizens will receive for food and accommodation are coming from European Union, and that there were discussions that we will receive any money that we need from European budget in order to cover the expenses with the refugees. And there weren't any discussion in public, at least from the government part or the parliamentarians, that we will have issues at this point with money. And um, that makes me think that European Union chip in from the first day,
Mhm.
because otherwise I know our budget and we wouldn't be able to sustain all this financial effort.
Mhm. What
So
about things like educating the children? I read, I think this was in Hungary, of a case where some of the women refugees who had been teachers in Ukraine set up a school for Ukrainian children to continue their education in Ukrainian. On the other hand, it would also be very nice if the kids took an opportunity to learn Romanian or some other language, and so possibly integrating them into regular Ukrainian schools might be a good thing too. What do people think about what should happen to the children? How should they be educated to their own advantage?
as I understand, some children can still do online school from Ukraine. So I don't know if teachers in Ukraine are holding these classrooms, or those teachers are already in other countries and still going, but they are continuing the type of school they were doing during the pandemic. But we also have cases in Romania of schools that opened classes for Ukrainian children to continue their studying in Ukrainian, and a lot of daycare centers for disadvantaged children are now opening their doors for Ukrainians, and they do a lot of activities with Ukrainian children in Romanian and Ukrainian.
Mhm. Okay. And how are the kids faring? One worries, of course, about the trauma and whether there are whether they become actually psychologically distressed and impaired, or are they resilient? For the most part, how are the children faring?
I don't have too many information from this part. I know that every time on the Facebook groups that I'm watching, there are a lot of psychologists that offer their for free their services, and people could and children could talk with them,
Mhm.
but I don't think um, they're in that point to realize what how impacted they are and how traumatic these things and what they went through is for them. People are still focusing on whatever they will go back or not to Ukraine, if they would need to start their lives here for the next year in Romania or in Poland, and I don't think they realize the psychological impact yet.
Mhm. Well, what do most of them say? Or do you have any, is there any kind of poll asking them whether most of them now are planning to put down roots or whether they're standing, with their bags packed to go back home?
Some of them went home. So we did had at the border Ukrainians passing from Romania to Ukraine and just going back because they left relatives there, or uh, they were out of the country for the first time in their lives and they couldn't handle it. They didn't know what to do, and they were talking with the neighbors. They thought that it might be safe to go back. So we did have those situations. Um, at some point, we thought that the invasion will end, and things will go better, or that the Russian will only focus on the east part of Ukraine. And a lot of Ukrainians were talking about going back near the border, just to be on their soil. But now, with all the talks about Transnistria and continuing of the invasion, I think the number of Ukrainians going back to Ukraine lowered significantly.
Does this reflect a change of public opinion among the Romanians themselves? The people, of course, you have your own network, and that's most of us only know the people that we know. And I suppose that's true for you too. But in your conversations with people, what is the general expectation for the future of this conflict? I'm raising the question because every a month I have a global town hall, and we have people from all over the place, but generally lately there's at least been one from Ukraine, from Kiev, and another from Moscow, and both of them, of course, are very opposed to the war. They both put this day before yesterday, Sunday or whatever it was. They both had the same analysis, which was very disquieting, which was that they think that Ukraine is winning the war. They expect that they're quite confident. They said, "Oh, for certain we'll win. Ukraine will win the war over Russia." Well, I wasn't at all that certain, but nevertheless, that I was surprised to hear them say that. But then they said, "But the downside of that, of course, is if Russia is seriously losing, that Putin is likely to feel that his back is to the wall and he has nothing left to do except use nuclear tactical weapons, and that means that even if, or especially if, Ukraine is winning, that's the most dangerous time, because they think that probably Putin will actually resort to that." And I think the following day, which was Monday, Lavrov made a confirming statement to that effect, is saying, "Take us seriously. We're not kidding about nuclear weapons." So, I don't know how people in government feel about that, or whether they consider that it's such a wild possibility that you shouldn't even worry about it. In the conversations that you have with your friends in Romania, what is the prevailing point of view about how much danger there is of either a protracted war or a very short but horrible nuclear exchange?
Most of the Romanians are cheering for Ukrainian and for Zelensky, and I think most of the Romanians think that Ukraine will win the war, and somehow Russia will all the Russian soldiers will go back to Russia. Regarding the nuclear threat, on that day when they made the statement, my phone rang all the day, because from my group of friends or close acquaintances, I was the one with an expertise on nuclear disarmament, and everyone would ask me, "Are they joking? Can this happen?"
You're referring to the day that Lavrov made that statement? Or,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I said, well, no, he's not joking, because they at some point they won't have any other issues, and I don't think Putin is a person that could recognize at some point that he lost, and that's it. I lost the battle. Life continues. So from my point of view, it would either be the end of Putin in some way, or it will be the end of Ukraine as we know it in these current borders, or the use of nuclear weapons and going through the World War III.
Okay, so you confirm the position that both my Russian and my Ukrainian based friends took. It's very disturbing, but I have to say, I'm sorry, but I think you're right. I think you're right. But on the other hand, we don't know how much internal opposition there is in Russia. And I was just until 20 minutes ago online with a group called the Citizens Assembly, No More War Citizens Assembly, which is a new outfit, sort of picking up on the idea of the Helsinki Citizens Assembly that I used to be so engaged with. And they have an online discussion now every few weeks. So one of the things posted there was the estimate that something like 40% of the conscripts, if they're conscripting, or at least the people who should be going into the military, are refusing, even though there are heavy penalties for conscientious objectors. Well, if 40% of the soldiers refuse to go, I don't see how that's not easy to see how they can actually wage much of a war. But we don't know whether that's true. That was somebody's estimate, it's really the challenging thing for me now. I'm trying to be part of a group of people to offer any kind of support we can to people inside Russia who oppose the war. And of course, getting a list of people is extremely difficult now because, of course, it's highly illegal to be opposed to the war, and people can go to jail for 15 years if they even look like they intend to do it. So, this is a very iffy and fluid situation. And I don't know whether you're in contact with anybody with similar concerns about how to support anti-war campaigns inside Russia.
No, I'm not in contact with anyone from Russia, but I'm reading the news, and um, part of Putin's propaganda is trying to reach Romania and Republic of Moldova press. We can see the influence in Republic of Moldova way more than in Romania.
Are you saying that the Moldovans are more mixed in their attitudes than
Yes.
is that right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And they do have now a very pro-European government, but they're very splitted as a society.
What is it like to be a peace activist in Romania?
Um, it's motivating, but also very hard. So when I first got in contact with ICANN, I was already having a master degree in security studies. And I was very, very frustrated to also learn about this new narrative about nuclear disarmament after 2 years of heavy studies on geopolitical issues, international relations, where deterrence was like a Bible for all my professors.
Oh dear.
And
I've
yeah,
forgotten where you were studying.
the University of Bucharest.
You joined ICANN as a staff member kind of person or what?
No, as a volunteer. All my work with ICANN was as a volunteer. At some point, we were 4 to 5 persons in Romania that were actively engaged with ICANN, doing everyday activities for it. Me and my colleague Hrant Jaginian is an Armenian that came with his family after the war in Armenia.
Mm.
And both of us were close in close connection with ICANN Europe, and we tried to do a lot of trainings for the youth that were interested in nuclear disarmament in Europe. And we've done a few activities, advocacy activities in Romania, but uh, we received a great wall from
Mm.
our Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Mhm.
It was easier to talk with ambassadors in Geneva and in New York, plenipotential ambassadors of UN, than to have a meeting with someone from the foreign ministry in
Well,
Bucharest.
that's similar to the situation in Canada. Canadians have this fairly decent reputation, but we don't deserve it because there's no support for nuclear disarmament from the government in Canada. And matter of fact, if we can take an extra few minutes, a couple of minutes about the question of the prospects of nuclear disarmament in view of this new turn of events with the war. Because, on the one hand, it seems to me both points of view, pro and con nuclear disarmament, have been strengthened. On the one hand, it looks to be very clear that nuclear disarmament has worked. I mean, I'm sorry, nuclear deterrence has worked in that Putin, by having war weapons, has actually kept NATO and the U.S. and all the other potential allies of Ukraine from joining in the fighting. So it's just nuclear weapons that has done the trick. He's really scared the rest of the world into staying, letting him do what he wants. On the other hand, the very fact that he's threatening to use them for the first time must make people take seriously the idea that these things really are still dangerous. For 30 years, people, or ever since the Reykjavik meeting, I think, people have said, well, the Cold War is basically over now. We don't have to worry about nuclear weapons, so nobody would ever use the damn things. We know better, and they will never. We don't have to worry about them. Leave them alone. They haven't hurt anybody so far, so they're not going to hurt anybody now. And now it's very clear. Yeah, they can be really used, and there's nothing to keep some nutcase from coming to power and being willing to use them. So, there's every extra new motivation for people to become serious about nuclear disarmament. And I don't know which side is going to win. I haven't heard people in a real debate about it. It's just a kind of a background noise going on in the discourse about the war in general. But before long, it's going to be come into focus as has this war made nuclear disarmament more attractive and more of an important thing for us to pursue, or have we been totally defeated by the fact that he's shown that nuclear deterrence works? What do you think, Anda?
Uh, in the media narrative here in Romania, you could hear almost exclusively that deterrence worked. But that is because the people invited to talk about it are generals and people from military sector, exclusively men talking about this, and they're showing, look how deterrence actually work, and we are in this situation and not in a worse one because it worked. And this is a pity because nuclear disarmament still hasn't a place on the public agenda in Romania. So we have this discussion that you're mentioning in close circles with a few friends that know my work with ICANN, or on a few pages on Facebook. But in mainstream, there isn't this dichotomy of two narrative. We only have the one that says deterrence worked. And at the beginning of the invasion, there was also a lot of comments about Ukraine being a country that gave not theirs nuclear weapons, but Soviet nuclear weapons were on soil of Ukraine in 91. Um, and but they gave their nuclear weapons back, and there were unfortunately a lot of discussion on what would have happened if that
They
didn't
kept them. Well, in fact, they couldn't have used them anyway because the control was in Russia, but they could have
yes.
built their own. And there I have heard a few people even talking about now, well, I guess we better get our own. And that is going to be the outcome, because if the analysis that you've mentioned prevails, that is the belief in deterrence works, there's going to be a line of countries lining up to, get nuclear technology, nuclear weapons. Everybody's going to want some. Why not? You need them, they work. Let's keep our, etc. It's really a very sad situation. But tell me about. Let's move on. I only have 1 minute to talk about your future and your current activities.
I'm now working with the Center of Resources for Public Participation. In the last years, I focus a lot on grassroots advocacy and how people can grow their power in asking for their rights with authorities. And I am working with different small grassroots groups. Some of them are from rural areas, some of them from disadvantaged communities, others are just neighborhood groups that organize themselves in order to ask for the rights to be respected in their communities.
And how grassroots is the movement?
Not many of them are working on peace issues or conflict issues. Indeed, the ones that are part of civil society and are working on peace, they are not so much grassroots. But those ones that are working on solving their own human rights issue or access to services and so on are very grassroots. And I'm working with people that didn't have any experience until a few months ago with civil society or with activists. And what we're working with them is to motivate and convince them that they can make a change, and they do have a voice, and their elected representative must stay with them at the same table and listen to their issues. So it's hard and soft work, but with great results in the end.
That is just lovely. I'm so delighted to hear it. And I certainly wish you every success in what you're doing. So carry on, my friend.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your invitation and for having me. It was a wonderful discussion.
Excellent. Goodbye, Anda.
Goodbye.
Project Save the World produces one of these shows 3 days a week, sometimes more. This is episode 443. You can watch them or listen to them as audio podcasts on our website, tosavetheworld.ca. Eventually, we even post the transcripts there. And when you get to the website, look around, because we have conversations going on there about 6 global issues, plus potential reforms in governance, economics, and civil society. To find a particular talk show, enter its title or episode number in the search bar, or the name of one of the guest speakers. After you've watched or listened, scroll down and share your own ideas about the show with the other viewers. This is a place for dialogue, so please join in. I'll see you there.